All right, third time's the charm, guy. Recording live from the basement.
From the
What are you
basement.
doing? All right. Go for it.
Welcome to Bristol Talk Sport. We are recording live from the basement, and we got a hell of a week of football to talk about with you. Thursday night, great opening game. We got Bills versus the Rams. Bills took the game 31-10. What were your thoughts on the game, Jay?
Game again, a very high action-packed game. Great game to kick off the season. You had defending champions and the Rams coming in, playing against Josh Allen and the Bills. And again, I think there was a huge trade in the offseason. They picked up Von Miller. And picking up Von Miller definitely made a big difference. He found his way to the quarterback quite a few times, and against an offense that I'm sure you've seen a lot of times in practice. Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs did their thing on the other side of the ball, and Matt Stafford just didn't look like himself. At least not the guy he was last year over there in that offense.
Now, with Von Miller, do you think that's something you're going to see week in and week out from the Bills? Or a big thought I had going into the game, I'm wondering how big of a difference it's going to make for the Rams as they lost their left tackle, Andrew Whitworth, to retirement. Von Miller was in the backfield all game, and they had a total of, 8 sacks on the game?
Oh, they're eating him alive. I think Miller had at least 2 on the game himself. And they were all over the place. On the other side of the ball as well, though, the Rams did pick up to replace Von Miller, Bobby Wagner. And he came in and definitely made an impact himself. They did look still, the Rams defense. I know the score is high on the Bills' end, but the Rams defense, the players, they definitely came out and they shined for a certain period of time. It just unfortunately wasn't long enough to hold the game down.
Last thing I have to say about the game is I think we're going to need to see a much better Week 2 performance out of Jalen Ramsey. Stephon Diggs was all over him all game. It didn't really look like he slowed him down all that too much. I think, Jalen bounced back Week 2. Next game we've got is Colts versus the Texans. And I know this one was a parlay buster because if you took Colts-Texans on the money line, it was a 20-20 tie, and that's going to be a push most of the time. A lot of people payouts aren't going to really be that great.
I feel this is a great game to bring up for the first of the Sunday games because it was a tie. And a tie is not the worst way to start the season, but it's not the best way to start the season. The problem is the tie was against the Houston Texans. And there was a lot of positives and a lot of negatives here in this game. I know the Colts are down, an offensive tackle, which is huge. And Matt Ryan, I know there's high expectations to come out in this offense. And he did well, to a certain extent. Pittman looked good. Taylor definitely, he had his feet underneath him as he always does. But the Houston Texans, Mills had an okay game, and they just kept plugging away. They managed to, Cooks made a few good plays.
Shout out to O.J. Howard's first game in Houston. Didn't really touch the ball too much, but when he did,
he scored
points on the board.
Scored 2 touchdowns. Huge pickup right towards the end of preseason.
Now,
and again, 2 touchdowns, huge in the game.
As a fan of the Colts, my big problem of the game was the last kickoff of regulation. Blankenship sent the ball out of bounds. We lose the toss in overtime. Got to kick it off to him. Out of bounds. What the? Oh, losing my mind. And then the Colts defense, fourth quarter and on, shored up the game. They were playing great, gave Matt Ryan and company every chance they had. Jonathan Taylor scored a touchdown. Michael Pittman scored a touchdown. Brought the game back. Back-to-back kickoffs out of bounds. Defense makes another stop in overtime. Colts get the ball, drive down the field to the 15-yard line, 1st and 10. And this is where I start to have some issues with Frank Reich, the coach. You got a guy who just kicked the ball out of bounds twice on kickoffs, let alone field goals. Not missing field goals, kicking them out of bounds on kickoffs. And the game's in your hands. You need 15 yards to win. And just the play calls looked really safe to me. It didn't really look like he was drawing up anything creative to go out and seal the deal with an emphatic come from behind W. Let's go home. The Colts would be number 1 in the division had they won that game. Now we're tied with Texans for first. But I want to see Frank Reich play a little more aggressive in some of these 2-minute situations.
I think again, I'm pretty sure they took care of the issue with Blankenship because he got released. Yeah, when you got a guy who can kick it as anywhere between one end zone or one sideline and the other, and can't keep it in between those. I don't know how you're going to count on a guy to get it between the damn uprights, which is just a shame. But again, they ended in a tie. A tie is not a loss. So there's that to build on, which will bring us to our next game, which is another heartbreaker for me. This is going to be the Saints-Falcons game. A game that we actually were up the whole game. We fought. We did a lot better than we thought we were going to do.
Sounds like the story of the Falcons, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. We did better than I think a lot of people expected out of us. Mariota looked much better than I think people expected. Drake London had himself a little bit of a game. We weren't able to hold on. And then I know they say, the game ended on Young Hoku missing a 63-yarder, but that was really more of like a Hail Mary kick. The game really ended when, the Saints were able to drive down and take the lead right at the end of the game. I think we had 26 seconds to get in the field goal.
Stud. That guy had a fantastic game.
Fantastic game.
He was banging 50-yarder after 50-yarder all game long.
All game. It's just a shame that they put him in a situation where the game was on his shoulders to hit a 63-yarder. He's a short kicker, and to hit a kick that long, you got to really line drive it, and being with his height and whatnot, it's kind of tough to really get that kind of depth on a kick like that.
Now, I have a question just coming up because it just seems appropriate with the Saints making a come from behind win against the Falcons. Mm-hmm. You being a Falcons fan for countless years, where do you think the issue is in Atlanta, though? Do you think it's Matt Ryan's gone there? Now it's Mariota's first time with the team. You've had Kyle Shanahan and Dan Quinn's been around, and you've got new coaches now. What is it with that organization and just they can't hold on to leads?
I'll talk about that, and then I also do want to make sure we talk about the Saints offense because they definitely had some things going on over there that were great. I think our big problem is I think it's still, again, a defense. We don't finish games. It's been years since we finished games. And they brought Dan Quinn in because they thought he was going to be able to take the team and really make them a defensive team and, change things. And I think the problem is they brought him in as a head coach, and as a head coach, there's too much to focus on. Because you can see now over in Dallas what he's able to do. When he with being the offense or the defensive coordinator over there, he's really able to. Dallas has a defense; it's a force to be reckoned with. It's a shame that we'll talk later about what happened to them, but. Dan Quinn, I think if they brought him in as a coordinator and not a head coach, I think we would have gotten a lot more out of his potential. But we didn't, and it is the way it is. And but again, I think they need to get a defense that's coaches that are gonna push that defense to finish games and not get these comfortable leads, and then lose by 5 points or less, which we have a terrible history of. A couple years back, we lost. I think it was 7 games. On the season, we lost 7 games of that season with less than 3 points. All fourth quarter, late leads that we blew. And it just seems to be a pattern that we have going forward. But again, that's enough about Atlanta for this week. But the Saints offense, Michael Thomas is back after a whole entire year without him on the field. He looked really good. He caught 2 touchdown passes. He had a great game, and on the other side, Landry definitely paid his dues. He had, what did we go with? I think he had 4 catches for 117 yards. It could be a little off on that, could be 114, but either way, it's in that ballpark. And, they did well. Unfortunately, the running game wasn't what they're used to. Kamara had an okay game for a regular running back, but not for him so much. And Winston looked okay. He looked like he was able to take some hits. Taysom Hill went out there and was kind of a superstar. He actually led the team in rushing in that game. I don't know about how, what you saw and how you felt about any of it. Really.
That game just is, as a football fan, somewhat just funny on one hand, but also heartbreaking if you got any empathy for the Falcons fans. It's just yet another comeback on them, and that's really my thoughts on the game. Just they need to figure out how to close this game out. Fourth quarter football's been a problem for them for a couple of years now, quite a while. You want to take us to the next game? We got the Niners and the Bears. The Bears outlasted the Niners 10-9 in a comeback victory themselves. Niners were up early.
This is a washout game. I'm pretty sure there's like 2 inches of water on the field to start the game. It was disgusting. You had Kittle out. Kittle missed a game. He's on the injury report early and wound up missing the game. And then they took a big hit offensively. The Niners did, and they lost Elijah Mitchell. Going forward for what looks to be at least 8 weeks.
Did you know this? I found this stat out just not too long ago. Elijah Mitchell last year was one of the top backs in the NFL for yards after contact. So he's able to get through people. I didn't know this dude was shaking tackles like that.
Unfortunately, he's not going to be shaking anything for a while. He has damaged ACL. I don't know the extent of the damage, but I know it's hurt. But they were playing in a big a big puddle all day. It wasn't very muddy, but it was very wet. So there was a lot of water these guys were dealing with. The Bears kind of got lucky towards the end and were able to pull out a win. But I think Trey Lance didn't look good at all. I think the insurance policy in Garoppolo, it was a good call because I don't think right now he's somebody you want to trade. I think you want to give Lance maybe another game or two. But if he continues to play the way he played in this game, I think you got to really consider putting Garoppolo back in and not worrying about his feelings.
We're going to have to wait and see for week 2 because you got to give him maybe some excuse because of the wash. Like it was wet on that field. Like, I don't know how how you can't throw the ball. Those receivers can't get grip. On to the next game, we got the Steelers and the Bengals. It's going to be a 23-20 finish in overtime. The Steelers with the upset. We got in that game.
What a game.
Minka Fitzpatrick is an animal. He opens up the game. First pass by Joe Burrow. Pick 6. Right to the house. That was amazing. TJ Watt had an amazing interception. Also a sack. Recorded many tackles. I heard he's going to have to be out for 6 weeks minimum.
Torn pectoral muscle. It's going to hurt.
No surgery, though.
No.
And he's a trooper, though. To go through an injury like that and not get surgery on it.
For what he's getting paid, dude, you just want to get him back on the field as fast as possible and make sure he's going to stay on the field.
For as bad as Joe Burrow played, 4 interceptions, 1 lost fumble, he put the Bengals in position to where they probably should have won. If Minka Fitzpatrick didn't get through the line and block that PAT at the end of the game, we probably don't see overtime. And then the kicker, who's been so good, Evan McPherson, shanked a 28-yarder.
All right, so Burrow, not only did he turn the ball over 5 times, it was almost 6 times because he dropped the ball. They counted it as a sack, but he definitely put it on the field another time, but they said he was down before the ball came out. And it is what it is. They take the call the way it is. But Joe Burrow really, it was kind of tough. A few of them might have been, not his fault, but he opened up the game with a pick 6. I'll say it again because I don't know if you heard it when he said it, but that was a pick 6, first play of the game. Kind of dial it back a little because you were just in the Super Bowl. I know the last time you were playing, you're high on your horse, but an amazing defensive game. There's some offense on both sides. Trubinsky didn't look terrible. Claypool made some disgusting catches. There was a play down in the red zone where the ball was thrown behind him, and he made a one-handed grab, falling back to grab it, and it was a great catch.
Pretty obnoxious. See that?
But
Deontay Johnson had a hell of a catch too.
Deontay Johnson had that sideline catch where he got his foot down. It was a really nice catch. It was a very almost uncatchable ball. It was one of those ones where you're like, oh, there's only a handful of guys that can really pick this ball up.
And honestly, I wouldn't have put him on the list, but he's really showing out. I didn't think Deontay Johnson had hands like that.
Nope. Minka Fitzpatrick. Oh my God, what a game! And again, I think he had the game-changing play of the week because I really think that obviously if he doesn't block that kick at the end of the game, they win. The game's over. Instead, they wound up being able to pull that game out in overtime.
The big question I really asked from this game, I think the Bengals will be all right. I think Joe Burrow and Jamar still look good. They had their issues, a lot of turnovers. The O-line was shaky because Pittsburgh's D-line they sacked them.
And didn't Higbee come out? I'm pretty sure Higbee came out of the game at some point.
Yeah. T. Higgins?
Higgins. Did I say Higbee? I'm sorry. Higgins. T. Higgins.
But still, the O-line didn't look good. Pittsburgh was all over Burrow. But I think that Burrow's played with bad O-lines. He brought that team. Their O-line wasn't anything special last year. They did wonderful things. But he had 5 turnovers. Do you think Mitch Trubisky did enough and is doing enough after week 1 to hold on to the job? Some people will say they won, so yes, but I mean, I really would like to see a stronger offensive performance out of Pittsburgh when your defense is winning you the game like that.
I'll say this. Look at what he won with. And the fact that Najee put up a middle-of-the-pack performance from a guy you'd consider to be more towards the top tier. Somebody you could lean on a little more, especially with a quarterback like Trubisky. I'm sure that was one of their big decisions going in. But I think he's still winning with what he's winning with. He did lose Juju Smith in the offseason. Schuster. You lost a couple of key pieces to that passing game, and we'll see what it comes up. But I will say, win, lose, or draw over the next couple of weeks. If he continues to play this way, I wouldn't be surprised if they brought in the rookie just to see what they could get out of him. At the same time, Cincinnati, they're having trouble with their O-line, and I kind of have to wonder how many hits Burrow's going to be able to take before he starts to worry about that knee. Because don't forget, he had a really bad injury at the end of his rookie year.
Well, don't forget that Cincinnati went out and spent money and draft capital on the O-line this offseason, and doesn't look like it's paying off week 1.
8 times, I think it was, in that game.
It doesn't look like it's paying off week 1.
So he was eating the ground, and I mean, again, he's shown that he might be tough mentally, but I don't know how physically tough he's going to be able to compare with that. But all right, we're going to move on to the next game, which is going to be the Eagles and the Lions, which is actually a very impressive game, and also the second highest scoring game of the season. Is that? It might be the highest.
That was the highest scoring game
close. Yeah. I mean, of the week so far.
38-35. The two teams combined for 73 points.
Yes. But this one was a different game coming out the gate. Coming out the gate, you had the Eagles. Jalen Hurts had the ball the first 2 drives and looked terrible. He was 0 for 6. He did rush for a lot of yards, but he's not a running back, which is kind of where you get scared with him. He makes me nervous because he is athletic, but you don't want a running back who throws the ball. You want a quarterback who can throw the ball and run if he has to. And there's a lot of these young quarterbacks, because of the way they run these offenses with the RPOs, who come out and they look for receivers more as a bailout and less as their job. And it's just like a point guard who shoots the ball like crazy. That's where shooting guards, that position is a different position. And running backs who can pass the ball are more for these trick plays. You don't want your quarterback running, calling a trick play every time, just because he is not thinking about actually passing the ball when you put him in there. Eventually, he did start getting the ball out of his hands. I don't know what they said to him in the second half of the game, but they did start. Him and A.J. Brown really started getting things working, and I think he went for 10 for 155. So things were definitely starting to click over there.
Well, I don't think Hurts looks that bad. I mean, he got off to a very rough start. He had to run a lot early in the game. He started the game 0 for 6 throwing the ball. It wasn't a hot start, but by the end of the game, he did real well. He started clicking with A.J. Brown strong. A.J. Brown had 155 yards and a touchdown on the game, and they put up 38 points. Hurts ran one in. He was offensively, he did great. He did fantastic. It took a little while. The offseason, he shrugged it off, and like I said, make that new bond with A.J. Brown. But what I was actually real excited about with this game was that the Lions, for the first time in a long time, I know it's only 1 week, but they looked competitive. It looked like it's not a team that can just be laughed at every week and right off a W every week in the schedule. Eagles are supposed to be a good team according to power rankings that have come out, according to a lot of off-season hype. It's supposed to be a team that competes with Dallas for the playoffs, but we'll touch on Dallas later. But the Lions came out and gave them a run for their money. Eagles, great win. They pulled it out, but DeAndre Swift did amazing.
That's what I was going to say. And with the Lions' offense, I think that was one of the stars there. Swift really came out and had a good game. And it allowed Jared Goff to be less like himself and more like a better quarterback. It really opened up the offense over there. They had a few young guys catching the ball. And the offensive line gave him time to throw, which is something he hasn't had in a little while. So I think again, close game, high scoring game, not really what people expected. I tell you what, I didn't call that score, that's for sure. We're going to move on to the Pats Dolphins game. Another game everyone was really anxious to see because everyone wanted to see this high scoring Miami fast super speed offense. And it wound up being a 7-20 game Miami.
I'll tell you about that game, I was shocked because a lot of people have been high on the Dolphins, and everyone that I've been talking to in the Patriots community has been really down on the Patriots this year. And I didn't really understand why. As an outsider, I thought I have faith in Bill Belichick when it just comes to football, and I thought Mac Jones looked good last year. They picked up Devontae Parker. The running backs all came back. I just thought the Patriots, even though they aren't the most talented roster in my opinion, I just thought they're a team that always shows up prepared, and the Dolphins came out and looked like the better team in all four quarters. The Dolphins just controlled the game.
I believe that. I also watched this. You did have Devontae Parker making the catches. Aguilar had a couple of really nice catches. But what I'll say is I watched the preseason. I saw a very frustrated Mac Jones who looked very irritated, aggravated, upset. And I still see that he wasn't able to leave it in the preseason. So I think it might actually be a little while before you get to see some wins out of this team. I just really don't think they're as a unit all there, especially when your leader isn't the guy that you really want him to be right now. He's still very young and he's not well developed, and I don't know how coachable he seems to be right now because he's got a guy who's been able to work with quite a few guys. But we'll see how it turns out. Again, Miami, very impressive. Tua came out, did well. Hill came out, did great, and Waddle came out and made some very big plays. He had a great catch across the middle for a touchdown. It looked really, really nice. The running game outside of that, not really the greatest, but they were again for a team that was coming out and supposed to be such a fast, fast-paced team. I think they did well. I think that they, I don't know that it's going to take more than 1 week to prove it, but we'll see what happens.
And the next game on the lineup is the Ravens and the Jets. Ravens came out and did what they were supposed to do. They beat them 24-9. Lamar got the Deep Passer of the Week award. He had 3 passes of over 20 yards that resulted in touchdowns. Lamar was using his arm and not his legs. Maybe he's trying to prove to everyone this year. Without Marquise Brown, by the way, who was their best deep threat, because he's over in Arizona.
And not Mark Andrews either.
And Mark Andrews, had a very small game for a guy who was very productive last year. He hit Rashad Bateman in the end zone. He threw a lot of deep balls. They were all falling, and I don't want to get too carried away. It was against the Jets. But
Sauce.
Yeah.
Sauce.
Hey,
Sauce.
shout out Sauce Gardner.
Still hasn't let up a touchdown in 5 years now.
Yeah.
So he's killing it. Great guy, great draft pick. Still, I'm not a Lamar fan, but my problem with Lamar is I'm a Mike Vick fan, and there's constantly this comparison that I don't agree with. But also, Lamar is a quarterback who doesn't throw the ball. This is the same problem I had with Hurts. But if he is throwing the ball,
20-yard touchdown.
If
plus
he is
passes.
throwing the ball, then you know what? I mean, if the skill's there and that's what he starts doing, then you know what? I don't mind that and I can respect it. But we'll see what it turns out to be. Again, just a game. But the Jets just really weren't there. Zach Wilson didn't play in this game. You do have a lot of young players on the field. I think it'll be a while before they're again a winning team and a cohesive unit. But there's pluses and minuses there. We'll see how it turns out. But Sauce, man, we'll say it again. This guy locked him down, did a good job. Next game up is going to be the Jags and the Washington Commanders. I saw this silly thing. They actually put the Washington State emblem on some mugs and had the Commanders listed on the mugs with the Washington State emblem.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, it was some stupid. It was a thing. They had an article online in the news about how these guys did this. They were selling them at one of the at the stadium like that. Silly. In this game, there's actually
You gotta love the guys in the parking lot trying to make some money.
trying to hustle, do their thing. But this is the game.
They're trying to get tickets, dude. They want to see the game.
For two teams that you don't really expect much out of. It was a very entertaining game. this is a game where you had it was a 22-28 Commanders win. You had a team that came out, did very well, and with Carson Wentz, played a game you really weren't expecting from him. They had a rookie who caught a few balls, looked very good.
Jahan Dotson.
Yeah, yeah.
Jahan Dotson had a great
He looked
game.
very good. You had an amazing defensive hit, probably one of the best hits of the weekend, and Derek Forrest.
If you have not seen the Derek Forrest hit, just go on YouTube.
He hits him so hard, the ball goes the other way. It's insane. And then
right on the sideline, right? Oh.
Yeah, and then we have a huge question. You know, a lot of people were asking, which is, was Christian Kirk going to be worth the money that the Jags went out and spent to bring him in? And it looks like, based on the way he played, he might actually be.
Well, he changed the whole market. After Christian Kirk got that monster contract, you saw guys like Debo hold out. You saw guys like A.J. Brown hold out. That's a big reason why A.J. Brown's not in Tennessee anymore. Well, whether he held out or not, he was asking for a big contract from Tennessee. Tennessee decided he wasn't worth it, or that they weren't willing to pay the money to keep him, and they went with the rookie. We're seeing how that's playing out. Philly's loving A.J. Brown, but it was all because Christian Kirk was a guy that people were like, whoa.
Kirk's in Washington, right?
Christian Kirk's in Jacksonville.
Yeah, but he was in Washington, right?
No, he was Arizona. He was next to DeAndre Hopkins.
That's right.
And him,
Okay.
AJ Green, and then
Right.
he decided to leave. He got paid upwards of $70 million for
74,
4 years.
yeah, I think it was 74 for 4. I'm not exactly
And
sure.
so
if
it
the number.
sparked a big move in the wide receiver market.
It did.
And first game with Jacksonville, did you see how he did?
Oh, he did very well, and that's the thing is, unfortunately, a lot of these people were comparing their talent to his, saying that because of their talent they were worth more money, and he clearly came out and proved that he was worth the money he was getting, and maybe even a little more, because they might not have won this week, but they will win.
If he
James
keeps playing
Robinson,
like that,
James
he'll win.
Robinson also came out and was solid on the ground. I'm not a big fan of Trevor Lawrence. You'll know this as we go on. But at the same time, he looked okay. He looked like he was able to manage the game. Wentz just came out and really outplayed everybody on the field.
Well, Jacksonville was up there in the fourth
Yeah.
quarter. I tell you, the team looks
Was it
like they're in the
Antonio-
right direction. They needed to get rid of Urban
Who's the running
Myers.
back in Washington?
Antonio Gibson had a
yeah.
fantastic
Yeah,
game.
Antonio
Gibson
did,
didn't
yeah.
really put a big rushing or receiving stats, but if you combine them for total scrimmage yards, he had a
did well.
fantastic
He did
day.
well, yes, and I agree. We're going to move on to the next game, which is actually a pretty action-packed game. This is a game that held a lot of weight because this is the Browns and the Panthers game. This is Mayfield's return home to kind of rub their nose
So you're
in it.
telling me I'm not going to see any more
Yeah.
Baker commercials where he's
I
closing
don't
down
think so.
Cleveland
I think they're
Stadium
pulling
doing the
Baker
laundry?
commercials.
They're
I think
pulling
they're all done.
Is he going to put some out in Carolina?
Maybe he will. But it wound up being it was a tight one. It wound up being a squeaker at the end. It was 26-24. Mayfield played his ass off.
I feel like they owe us one more commercial where like Baker's like packing up and
Packing
getting out of
up, yeah,
Cleveland.
right.
Like,
No,
he's like,
that's-
I'll see you guys.
You know, you can always email them the idea and see what they say. But you know what you had here is you had we made it through week 1 with McCaffrey still healthy. He's not on the IR. 2, it looks like Robbie Anderson and Mayfield might have got over that mess that happened before he came over with him. You know, Anderson, trying to defend his quarterback at the time, who wasn't Mayfield. He had a great game. It's just one of those things where the Browns, their ground game is insane between Hunt and Chubb. You can't really get over it. It's never going to go away.
They combined for 180 on the ground.
Yeah,
Cleveland.
disgusting. It was just one of those things where these guys were a wrecking ball.
Early in the game, I was watching it. Early in the game, multiple times there was 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 4s, and Cleveland was perfectly comfortable. Maybe because they don't trust Brissett, but they were just running it and they were picking them up left and right on the ground.
Yeah. Oh, the wrecking balls. It's a great 1 and 2, and they can. The thing is, Hunt can run and catch out of the backfield, so you never know when he's on the field what you're going to get out of him. And they still have some. They got some decent blockers over there. Guys able to keep hold their blocks for a few minutes.
You think it stings though? You think it stings that Cleveland hasn't started 1-0 in 18 years? In the first year that Baker's gone, I know he's not responsible for all those 18 losses, but they get their first win in week 1 against Baker.
I don't think it stings, only because I think Baker's given that team more than enough over the past couple of years. He brought them to the playoffs, so he gave them something they hadn't had in a very long time. Unless you have anything else to really say about this game, again, a game that was meaningful.
I mean, McCaffrey didn't really play all that well.
No.
But it was a lot of Baker and Robbie and in Cleveland's ground game. Good win, Browns. Congratulations. First time you've been 1-0 since 2004.
This next game was really a game of the running backs, and it was really good. It was really a matter of who came out.
At least one of them.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, it was whoever really came out and shined was gonna was the team that was gonna go. And this was a Giants Titans game, and it actually it wound up being 21-20, and the Giants won this one by a point. They squeaked it out.
You think the Chants are gonna come back for G-Men? They haven't had nothing to celebrate.
No.
While.
It's gonna take more than. Here's the thing: Saquon Barkley finished out as the number one back this week, and he earned every ounce of it. But at the same time, Derrick Henry really didn't, and it's not his fault. They didn't. The game just wasn't there because they were too busy trying to win the game, and unfortunately, they couldn't get this guy free. They couldn't free him up enough anyway. And Tannehill he didn't look bad, but he didn't, again, it just wasn't one of their best games. And at the same time, the Giants, Barkley just went off, and it gave Danny Jones looked good. It gave him the chance It gave him a chance to really sit back and take his time in the passing plays.
I think the Giants have a little reason to be optimistic. I don't want to get carried away with it, but they got a new coach. They got Brian Dable. He was jumping around cheering with them in the locker room after the game.
There's a beautiful play to Shepard down the middle of the field at one point.
The 70-yard touchdown, the long ball, 60-yard touchdown.
Yep.
But Brian Dable's got a whole new energy in that locker room, and Daniel Jones completed over 80% of his passes. Played very good, protected ball. He had 1 pick, but he also had 2 touchdowns, and Saquon did the rest for them. It was a fantastic game.
It's great to see him back on the field for the team because I think healthy Saquon's probably a top 3 to 4 back in the league. I know some people might argue that, but the reality of it is I think personally, I think Henry, Taylor, and then after that you have to argue where Saquon and a couple of these guys fit in. We'll see how the rest of the season goes. I think if he stays healthy, him and McCaffrey might be fighting for that 3rd to 4th spot. But we'll see again what happens. Henry didn't really get his chance to get off at this game, but I think he's healthy. He did look okay when he got the ball. He was just not able to get through the line. The blocks weren't there. The holes weren't there.
Giants 21-20.
A lot of that's because the passing game wasn't there. Yeah. This next game was tough to watch. At the same time, I enjoyed the game because I feel like it was what it was, and it was well deserved. The Packers and the Vikings, they pretty much knocked these guys down, and they never got back up. 7-23. Yes, the Vikings came out, their offense came out, and they did what they do. They have a lot of weapons, and they used every one of them. There was a lot of questions about how Aaron Rodgers would do with what most people would consider to be a mediocre receiving corps. And then Lazard wound up not playing. He was on the injury report to start the game, so he was not on the field. So Rodgers really wasn't playing with much to work with. Some young guys who just were dropping the balls left and right. The running backs together were a great, tandem, but individually, you're just not getting enough out of either one of them because you're trying to make sure that each one of them gets a chance to touch the ball. And the offensive line just didn't look good. Rodgers was taking a lot of hits. At one point, he took a hit. 3 guys, these guys knocked him pretty good. And you saw him lay down on the field, and he was having a hard time getting up. On the other side of the ball, Jeffries was amazing, number 1 wide receiver.
Justin Jefferson?
Jefferson.
He went
Disgusting.
off 9 catches for $180 and 2 touchdowns.
Number 1 wide receiver in the league.
Which my big question for that is, where were you, Jair Alexander?
Mm-hmm.
He's supposed to be one of the top corners in the league. This guy's an animal. He's had highlight film after highlight film. He's an amazing corner. But he did not show up last Sunday.
No,
he wasn't there.
The entire Packers defense, which is actually pretty ranked fairly high, just wasn't there all again. Cook had a good game. Thielen, caught a couple balls here and there, but Jefferson really went off.
And Packers, you're going to have to do something about those young receivers. They need to... You're in the league now, young guys. You need to really go out there and show yourself because Christian Watson, they're the first receiver they took in the draft, took him in the second round of the draft. First play of the game, had a 75-yard touchdown pass, dropped it. And then they didn't throw him the ball again until the fourth quarter.
They dropped a lot of passes in the game. If you go back and look, there's quite a few drop passes in the game. But also what there was is Minnesota's defense was pretty disgusting. Harrison Smith picked up right where he left off last season, which was, clobbering guys, making tackles, and getting out there and causing a disruption. We'll see going forward how much longer the Packers put up games like this versus the games that you expect them to play. And Minnesota's got a playoff team, right now, and I think going forward they're definitely going to be contenders. Unless there's anything else, we're going to move on.
I disagree with you on Rodgers a little bit, though. I think Minnesota does look good, but I've seen Rodgers. Rodgers got stomped by New Orleans week 1 last year, and he came back. Rodgers famously quoted the RELAX, relax. He 1 week isn't enough for me to say that the Packers are in trouble yet. I've seen Rodgers come back from bad starts.
That's fine, but I've also, we've seen plenty of quarterbacks who don't come back from bad starts, and Aaron Rodgers at his age, 37 now, might be getting to a point. I understand he got back-to-back MVPs, but I'll argue each one of those years there was another player that was worth an MVP consideration, and possibly, should have gotten it instead of him. But someday we'll get into those arguments because,
The next game that we're going to talk about is the Chiefs and the Cardinals, which the scoreline doesn't really show it. I mean, 44-21 still a blowout, but it was worse than that. The Chiefs were all over these guys. Mahomes, 5 touchdowns, played basically a perfect game. And the Cardinals only had 7 points in the fourth quarter. That's why I say the game score doesn't really tell the whole story. The Chiefs really, just were all over them.
They beat him up pretty bad. Mahomes looked pretty good. He put up 5 TDs, like this guy was saying. They have a lot of weapons over there. And it looks like that, what was it about this game? It looks like Kelsey's going to be able to really keep doing what he was doing, keeping himself open over the middle, because they brought in a couple free agents that are able to really make sure they keep the deep field open, take the top off of these guys. And Cardinals, Kyler Murray again.
I think it's time to sound the alarm, dude. Last year, after Hopkins got hurt, the Cardinals looked like a whole different team. They didn't look good against Kansas City. Now, I'll give them one benefit of the doubt, is that Kansas City is a very good ball club.
Connor looked good. He came out and did okay.
But Arizona lost a lot of games without Hopkins last year. They didn't win their first game without Hopkins this year. And to go 6 weeks without him while he's serving that suspension, I think Arizona's in big trouble. This might be a bad year for them.
Yeah, I agree. Again, you got a midget and Kyler Murray trying to throw off and over an offensive line that's a lot bigger than him. And he's throwing guys to AJ Green, who's way past his prime, but still a good guy if you want 40 catches out of the season. But he's not going to be that guy. And same thing with Ertz. He's again way past his prime. He's still a guy who can catch a couple balls, but he's not the guy. Bringing in Hollywood Brown might help things out for a little while, but at the same time, until Hopkins is back on the field, you really can't judge this offense too much. So we'll see what they put up, later on in the season.
And I was really excited to talk about this next game. The next game involved probably some of the biggest off-season moves. The Raiders picked up Devontae Adams. They picked up Chandler Jones from Arizona. And they picked up Rocky Sin, cornerback from Indianapolis. They made a lot of moves. They helped out Derek Carr. They seem to have beefed up the defense. And they versed the Chargers, who picked up Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson to beef up their defense to go along with the division that picked up Russ and still has Mahomes. So these two teams made huge changes to their defense, and the Raiders brought in arguably the best receiver in the NFL. And we got a score of 19-24.
Now here's the thing. Even though the Chargers won this game, Adams had a great week. Don't let that change anything. Adams had a great week, but at the same time, Herbert did very well. Herbert lost we had Allen come out in the first quarter, and Keenan Allen, he came out with a hamstring first quarter. Only reason he's not playing this week is because they're playing a Thursday night game. Otherwise, the coach said it's not a serious injury, and they expect him to be fine for week 3. So is my fantasy lineup, by the way. But at the same time, they look good. It really didn't run as much as you thought they were going to run. It was the Raiders at the same time, same thing. It really wasn't a running game. It was a passing game. And you had the Raiders, I think, ran for 13 carries overall. Jacobs had 10 carries.
I think the Raiders got a little too excited. They got Devontae Adams, and I think he was like a shiny new car. He played well, but I think it was the shiny new car, and I think the coach, which is also a new coach, they got Josh McDaniels over from New England, the offensive coordinator.
And Waller didn't have the game he expected.
I think Josh McDaniels wanted to show off his shiny new car, so he drove Devontae Adams around. He threw him the ball a bunch, and Adams had a big game. But I think he made a huge flaw in the game script by neglecting Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs only had 10 carries on the game. The Raiders only ran the ball 13 times. But in those 10 carries, Jacobs put up 57 yards. 5.7 yards per carry is an amazing average. And it could have probably made the game a much different script to the game if Jacobs was emphasized more. It probably would have opened up more lanes for Waller in the middle because the linebackers have to drop down at this point. And Renfro's a slot receiver, so he's playing behind the linebackers too.
Yep, didn't get the targets he should have got. It was a shame. Again, the Bolts were also able, I'm sure that the Raiders got really excited when Allen came out because they thought they'd really have a better shot. But they were able to keep their offense balanced. They were able to keep themselves moving forward and, able to hold on to the lead. The next game was a Sunday night game, and this was America's game, the Bucs and the Cowboys. And unfortunately, this was one the Cowboys put up the lowest score for the week with only 3 points. The Bucs did their job. They put up 19 points on the board, which is more than enough. And we had one of the worst injuries of the season in this game so far. It is only week 1, but Dak, it looks like messed up his thumb pretty bad. It was later in the fourth quarter, so it's not one of those, he's still responsible for a lot of the game and what happened, but he's going to be out for what looks like 6 to 8 weeks. I know Jerry Jones is promising he'll be back on the field in 4 weeks, but that's not realistic. Realistically, the trainer said it looks like 6 to 8 weeks. And the Bucs did their job. As a Falcons fan, it was really nice to come out and see Julio get 6 touches, 3 passes, 3 carries. He put up 99 all-purpose yards. And there was, besides Mike Evans is the only other player who saw more touches with 7. Again, they were able to win. Fournette came out, and there was a problem with his weight. I know people were curious about how he's going to be able to play at 160 pounds, but it looks like he lost a bit of it, and he was playing pretty damn well.
He was playing physical. He probably turned that weight into muscle because there's one play that's criticized by some, but he came off the edge and put a chip block on Micah Parsons, and that was a big hit this week. He really laid into him, and I think even before Dak got hurt, it was kind of time to press the panic button in Dallas. And with Dak getting hurt for a substantial amount of time, it's burning down in Dallas this season. This season, them and Arizona have got to be my 2 teams that are in really rough shape for teams that had some hope. Because Dallas, even when Dak was on the field, wasn't moving the ball. They lost their left guard in training camp and preseason. And with Amari Cooper gone too, these receivers didn't seem to get open. Now, I know Bucs have a very stout defense, but it didn't look pretty. It didn't look pretty, and then Dak going down was just icing on the cake. Good win for Tampa Bay, 19-3, and geez,
for
they're not them boys right now.
For a 45-year-old quarterback, I'll tell you what, Tom Brady still looks like one of the best on the field.
I do want to give a shout out to Micah Parsons, though. He was an animal last year, and he looks like he's going to be an animal this year. He was making stop after stop in the red zone. I think he's personally responsible, a big reason why Tampa got held to 19 points. Because without Parsons, I really think they would have ran away with this game. It would have been a blowout.
All right, and for the last and final game of the week,
maybe the most interesting game of the week. This game was very fun to watch.
Again, there was a lot of
Broncos, Seahawks, 16-17. Geno Smith, they tried to write him off. He ain't right back.
Geno Smith was perfect almost through 2 full quarters into halftime. He came out 13 of 13 before he even threw a pass that was even looked like it might be incomplete. He came out and looked more like Russell Wilson than Russell Wilson did. The offense looked good. You had a solid running game showing. And the Broncos didn't look bad, but they look like they're missing something. The running game, they had a good, between the two of these guys, Melvin Gordon and
I think the Broncos looked amazing because Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams in the ground game did amazing. Melvin Gordon averaged in the high 4s in yards per carry, and Javonte Williams went over 6 yards per carry. So them as a split back duo. Russell Wilson looked great. I don't think there's any reason to panic. Denver, you guys should be real excited about the season because you move the ball up and down the field. It was an amazing offensive performance. You need to figure out what you're going to do in the final 20 yards of the field.
I think, again, you had 2 red zone, 1 goal line fumble into the end zone.
Both on the goal line.
Oh, were they both on the goal line? I wasn't sure about that, but they it's huge because those are 2 scores, running back scores that you should have punched in.
Even if you get field goals.
A giant change in this game to the point where you guys are, the lead is substantial to the point where you don't really have to worry. I think in this game, again, your receivers for what the targets, they came down with the ball well. I expect a little bit more out of DK Metcalf. Judy looked good, had a great game on the other side with Broncos. But
let's not avoid the topic.
Wasn't Terry? He said not avoid the topic.
Let's not avoid the topic. If you're the coach,
the final play, here we go.
And it's 4th and 5. There was a good 40 seconds on the clock, and he ran it all the way down to 1 second on the play clock, calls a timeout, and then opts for a 64-yard field goal.
It was kind of weird. I don't know why you wouldn't save some more time. Let Russell Wilson take a try at it. But at the same time, what are you gonna do? I think, and I just don't think the kick was the right thing to do. But it's that's why we're not head coaches, I guess. But I do think
don't be
Seattle,
so modest, man. There's not a lot of people who agreed with that call.
I know, but Seattle came out, and I think they were worried about what they were going to get out of Geno, and I think he gave them a little bit of time to relax. But again, that was our the week.
I'm looking forward to seeing more Rashard Penny. He played well.
You can look forward to seeing more of us when we give you our Thursday night review after this video. Have a good night.
It's a little longer than that. I think it's going to be 25 minutes.
Yeah, probably, but it's alright.